Recent avalanche of sexual harassment allegations has cast a spotlight on non-disclosure agreements. These are the contracts employers use to keep such matters private. Jerika Duncan has more on this.
I signed that non-disclosure agreement, and I think at the time I hoped I'm just going to close my eyes and just make this go away.
But that's not what happened for former Fox News anchor Juliette Huddy. She's one of several women who reached settlements with 21st Century Fox over sexual harassment allegations involving former Fox News host Bill O'Reilly.
I also was concerned that I would be called a liar, and it was going to be my word against somebody who was very, very powerful.
What was your understanding of non-disclosure agreements?
Both sides keep your mouth shut.
Using non-disclosure agreements is a common practice. They're generally used to help protect confidential information within companies. But in the wake of growing sexual misconduct claims, we've seen how they can be used to keep those claims a secret. Across the country, at least 6 states have recently proposed legislation to ban or place limits on workplace non-disclosure agreements in cases involving sexual harassment or assault.
This took a lot of work.
And this week, bipartisan legislation was introduced on Capitol Hill that would eliminate forced arbitration, which prevents sexual harassment victims in many cases from going public and going to court. For Juliette Huddy, she says in retrospect, signing the NDA was a bad idea.
The tears are coming because I'm upset with myself for not dealing with it. And again, potentially preventing him from doing something else to somebody.
We reached out to Bill O'Reilly. He had no comment. Now, a woman who reached a settlement with O'Reilly filed a lawsuit against him this week to try and get out of her non-disclosure agreement.
The next bill we have is Senator Sheehan's bill, Senate Bill 2687, relative to non-disclosure agreements. Senator Sheehan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of this august Judiciary Committee. In October 2017, the New York Times and the New Yorker reported that dozens of women accused Harvey Weinstein, renowned movie producer, of sexual abuse and misconduct for over a period of 30 years. This scandal sparked the hashtag #MeToo movement on social media and has led to an even larger movement of women speaking out against harassment by prominent politicians, media executives, entertainers, and others. Another horrific story of sexual assault involved a Dr. Larry Nassar, gymnastics physician, who pleaded guilty to 10 counts of criminal sexual misconduct in the first degree. These incidences are far from isolated, Madam Chair. A 2017 poll by ABC News and the Washington Post found that 54% of American women report receiving unwanted and inappropriate sexual advantages, with 95% saying that such behavior usually goes unpunished. Now, that may not be indicative of textbook or statutory harassment, certainly is an indicator of how widespread misconduct may be. How did the aforementioned high-profile perpetrators keep their sexual misconduct quiet for so long, you might wonder? Their actions were, in part, and in large part, for other, concealed from public view through the use of non-disclosure agreements, which kept their victims silent. Employers have used non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs for short, for years for legitimate business purposes, such as protecting trade secrets, innovation, invention, and proprietary information. In recent years, however, we've seen NDAs being used to protect the reputation of companies in instances when sexual harassment and assault have been alleged, which shield sexual perpetrators and predators from accountability and consequences for their actions. Further, NDAs also silence victims and stop them from discussing abuse even with their own families, and from warning others about the alleged perpetrator, putting innocent folks in harm's way going forward. In the case of Dr. Larry Nassar, Olympian Michaela Maroney claimed that USA Gymnastics paid her not to speak about Nassar's abuse publicly. Maroney entered into the agreement willingly, but stated that she was traumatized and not in the right frame of mind when she did so. Perfectly understandable. Incidentally, Maroney used a portion of her financial settlement for psychological treatment to cope with Nassar's abuse. I find it, Madam Chair and members of this committee, unconscionable and unjust as a matter of public policy for perpetrators of sexual harassment and assault to be able to hide behind a dark veil of secrecy of non-disclosure agreements. I believe it's time to end this practice. The bill before you, Senate Bill 2687, and Madam Chair, Sub A is...
I just realized I
Yeah.
forgot to bring it before us, but as soon as you finish, I'll do that.
Thank you. If enacted, would void any provision in a settlement agreement that would prohibit the disclosure of the basic facts related to a claim of sexual harassment, sexual assault, retaliation, and stalking. Senate Bill S. 2687, if approved, would help put an end to the malpractice of using non-disclosure agreements to cover up abusive behavior in the workplace, and society at large by providing victims the option to publicly identify those individuals who hurt them, and if they are not stopped, may hurt others going forward. If we were to approve this legislation, Madam Chair and members of the committee, and which we will join other states that have similar legislation already on the books, such as California, Pennsylvania just very recently, and Washington State also relatively recently. There are also, Congress is considering similar legislation for their own conduct and behavior, and New York State also has legislation very similar to this as well. With that, I'd like to thank the co-sponsors signed onto this bill, along with the 27 other Senate colleagues that I'm proudly saying co-sponsored this legislation. With that, I thank you, Madam Chair, and the members of the committee, and any questions you may have.